Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and today I'm here to talk about Nidoqueen, which is a Pokemon that I did not envision myself talking about, at least not so soon, but we can blame good old Zets for that, profile picture in the bottom right corner of the screen. And yeah, basically how this came about is Zets reached out to me on Discord and said, why don't we do a video on a particular Pokemon together? And the Pokemon that we agreed upon was Nidoqueen. How such a Pokemon was convinced to me, I will not know, but we'll see how good it actually ends up. So this is how Zets tanked my Elo in ADV, except it's actually the ADV's Jack of all trades, and we'll see why I call it that. So as we always do, we'll look at the viability rankings, and surprise, surprise, Nidoqueen is not here. Should it be? It's a great question. But if we even go back to the Google Sheets viability rankings, I need to find a better name for this, but if you're familiar with my Electabuzz video, we've examined this and we've seen what niche and powered and underrepresented Pokemon have shown up here, and yeah, Nidoqueen is not one of them. Similarly to Electabuzz, despite being a UU Pokemon. So yeah, it's going to be a little difficult to find the use case for Nidoqueen, but I'm up for the challenge. Let's see what I come up with here. Let's take a look at Nidoqueen's stats to start. This spread is not bad for Gen 3 standards. This is a workable mixed bulk with 90, 87, and 85. Like, granted, the gold standards are always going to be your mythicals with the 100s across the board, but not every Pokemon has that, and sometimes you want something that's not a Psychic type, and Nidoqueen is, well, not a Psychic type, so that might help us, although Poison also is a fighting resist. I guess it resists Bug, that's kind of good. But the mixed bulk, the physical side, is a little bit similar to Claydol. We definitely have more HP than Claydol does, but we have a bit less defense. We end up taking physical moves around in the ballpark if you look at calcs, like within, I'd say, 5-ish%. So that's not too bad. And we're a little lower in the special department than Swampert, who is, I believe, 100 HP and then 90 SPDF? Let me check that out. We should come more prepared, but yes, 90 SPDF. I should never have doubted myself. In any case, it's got some decent bulk, and the Poison ground type has some interesting properties. You know, the electric immunity is nice to have, and it is nice to be a ground type that's not weak to grass, so it makes it difficult for the electric types to hit you for super effective. You force them to run HP Ice, but because we have such respectable special bulk, not quite as good as Swampert, but close, we don't mind taking an HP Ice as much as some other ground types might. Our mixed attacking is a little bit on the mediocre side. We have a similar attack stat to Charizard, which could mean something, but Charizard has a lot higher special attack to work with, 109, I believe, and that definitely saves Charizard as a offensive Pokemon. But our special attack is a little bit higher than Claydol's. I mean, that's not really an achievement. Claydol's not known for being a very strong special attacker, but as we know, Claydol with the minus special attack nature, hitting a super effective Psychic onto Gengar can still get the job done. That being said, Nidoqueen has dual physical offensive stats, so we can't really take advantage of Stab there. So maybe I'm not making as good a case for Nidoqueen as I thought, but its speed is pretty good. It's faster than Smeargle and Claydol, and there have been a lot of Claydol comparisons here, and that's not necessarily on accident. I do find that Nidoqueen shares a lot of defensive similarities to Claydol. Claydol is kind of nice because it has Levitate as its ability to dodge ground type moves, whereas Nidoqueen is weak to ground type moves, but otherwise they do actually have the fighting resistance. They do have a lot of the good qualities that ground gives. Nidoqueen, like I said before, is resistant to bug, while Claydol is weak to it though, so that is an important distinction. I think a point that is important to bring up is the comparison to Nidoking, who is the male counterpart to Nidoqueen, and their stats are pretty similar. They're all decently close together. What you'll notice is that Nidoqueen favors defensive stats, Nidoking favors offensive stats. Yeah, 92 attack, that's definitely like a lot more usable, and with strong moves like Earthquake and Mega Horn, Nidoking can make really good use of that attack stat. For Nidoqueen, she unfortunately does not get Mega Horn, but she does get Superpower, which might make her slightly better into Tyranitar. Superpower, 120 base power fighting type move. It's the precursor to Close Combat, and not too many Pokemon get it, but Nidoqueen does, so she might be able to handle Tyranitar with not much attack investment, which is really, really nice. And then, yeah, Nidoking does have a kind of nice speed advantage, but it's not so much that it, like, makes Nidoking a much faster sweeper, per se. 85 is pretty good. That is the same stat, I believe, as Heracross and Suicune. So it's not bad by any means. But definitely not quite into that upper tier like with Moltres and the base 100s. So, and Nidoqueen is not too far behind. There are a handful of base 80s, I'll give you that, the Metachams and the Venusaurs of the world, but that's kind of it for the comparison here. Nidoqueen is a little bit more bulky, Nidoking's a little bit more offensive. That's the kind of the takeaway. Let's take a look at some of the moves, because I think moves are really important for determining what the use of a Pokemon would be. Like, we can have all the stats we want, but if we don't have any moves to go with it, then we're kind of in a bad spot. So I'm using Porydex, which I've recommended them before as a tool for helping you build Pokemon, and this is definitely helpful for me in deciding what to do with Nidoqueen. So, yeah, definitely recommend it. These are the stats from January 19th to April 2025. April 2025, I believe, is the most recent month that they have stats available for. I just went back to Jan 2019 to get a good sample size. What we notice here is that Nidoqueen has some really interesting coverage on both sides of the spectrum. So Earthquake, Sludge Bomb is your stabs, but you also get Shadow Ball. You get some good fighting type moves, like I mentioned before, Superpower, but also Focus Punch and Brick Break. Rock Slide, nice to have. Body Slam, also a pretty good move. Yeah, I mean, pretty solid. For the special coverage, though, we get Ice, Fire, and Electric coverage, which is not very common, especially not for a Pokemon that has a halfway usable special attacking stat. I mean, you tend to see this with like a lot of like the normal types, like Snorlax will probably have options like this, but Snorlax also has a mere base 65 special attack. Let me check that out. Again, could be more prepared for this, but we do things off the cuff here. Yeah, 65 special attack. See, I know this stuff. In any case, we also have Crunch and Surf, which are really, really interesting. I don't know exactly if water is the most ideal coverage to have. A lot of the water-weak Pokemon, like Tyranitar, Aerodactyl, who else? Claydol, are generally hit just as well by Ice Beam or much better by some other move, like in the case of Tyranitar, a fighting type move. It's interesting. Surf is interesting if you want to compress your coverage, but I don't necessarily know if I would do that myself. And spoiler, I did not. And the utility moves, we have Taunt, Thief, and Counter. All of those are pretty interesting. Thief, as you see, about 6.5% of players who have used this in the window that I've looked at are running no item, so that should correlate with our Thief statistics. In fact, it looks very strangely, only 4% of Nidoqueens are using Thief, so are there some people running no item Nidoqueen and not running Thief? I'm not sure. That's an interesting thought. In any case, Roar Substitute. I mean, most Pokemon get Substitute, so I don't know if that's super notable. Protect as well. Toxic as well. Although, I would say if you're going to run Toxic on Nidoqueen, like, can you... I mean, I guess if you need specifically the defensive profile that Nidoqueen offers, I could see it, but there are... You could run Toxic on any Pokemon, so I don't know if I would say that Nidoqueen is particularly good at using Toxic. And then we have the Secret Sauce here, which is a move that isn't even on this list right here, which is crazy to me. I kind of feel like that would, to me, that was like the slam dunk when I found out that I got this move. But in any case, we'll definitely be checking out the Secret Sauce. Oh, also, I think it's important to note that with this Poison and Ground type, Nidoqueen is immune to both Toxic and Thunder Wave, which is really, really good. It means that we're a little bit more resistant to status than other Pokemon. Not super duper resistant, because things like Body Slam and Stun Spore can still get us. Will-O-Wisp is still nasty. Sleep is, I mean, that's the eternal struggle for every Pokemon, really. Except for Banette, who gets his Insomnia, but I digress. So how are we going to get the best use out of this? Because we have kind of middle of the road and a lot of options, so it can be really tough to figure out what to do. But we're going to try to find some benchmarks that Nidoqueen can get to accomplish some goals that we might want. So first, let's take a look at defensive benchmarks. With a mere 32 HP EVs, we will live an unboosted Adamant Earthquake from all of Salamence, Metagross, and Tyranitar. I think it's really important to figure this out because all three of these Pokemon love to use Earthquake. All three of them love to run max attack investment with Adamant. Tyranitar maybe a little less so than Salamence and Metagross, but nevertheless, all are capable of doing this and do tend to do this, and none of them get stab on it though. So it's not so difficult to try to figure out what you need to live the Earthquake from all three of these. If you do this calc though, make sure that you use Salamence or Metagross, because Tyranitar has one base attack less than them. So if you EV to live Tyranitar, you might introduce the opportunity to get max rolled by Salamence or Metagross. So I think that's really good, especially for a poison type like Nidoqueen, who is going to bait that move out. And potentially you can KO back depending on whether you're going to use Ice Beam or Fire Blast or Superpower or whatever. With a little bit more HP investment, we can actually live Psychic from all of Celebi, Jirachi, and Starmie. Note that Psychic is a 90 base power move in this generation, and Surf from Starmie is a 95 base power move, so if you're up against the offensive Starmie with Surf, you do still have a decent chance to live, but it's not great, and also Hydro Pump is definitely going to smash you if it hits you. And then with a bit more significant defensive investment, we can get to this with 240 HP or 152 SPDEF if you're trying to minimize your EV investment, or you could do 32 HP with 136 SPDEF if you want to get the other 2 bullet points as well. We could survive a +1 Surf from a defensive Suicune. Granted, I don't know if that's super duper relevant. Maybe if you have Thunder on your Nidoqueen, it could be an option, or if you have Thief and you want to steal the item from Suicune without losing your entire Nidoqueen. It's a possibility, but I would definitely pay close attention to those top 2. Those are not a ton of investment, and certainly worth looking into if you're going to use Nidoqueen. The next thing that we want is our offenses. With just 4 attack EVs, we can one-shot a bulkless Tyranitar with Focus Punch. That's pretty good, and if you're gonna run Focus Punch on Nidoqueen, I would definitely recommend that you find it in your heart to get 4 EVs into attack. If you want to do it with Superpower instead, you'll need a little bit more significant investment. 116 with a plus Nature or 204 will get you there, which can be worth it, especially if you're going to run a physically oriented Nidoqueen. With 160 attack and a plus Nature, we can 2-hit KO the bulky attacker Metagross set, which runs 252 HP and 80 defense. Although if we want to KO it after leftovers, we're going to need 216 with the plus attack Nature. But the 160 is still worth noting because 2 turns of leftovers is equal to 1 turn of Spike Chip. So with 1 layer of spikes, 160 is sufficient to get there against Metagross. And every other Metagross set is going to be running less defensive investment than this, although there is the option on the bulky attacker Metagross to run an Impish Nature instead, which is a plus defense rather than a plus attack. And that could mess with this idea, although Impish Metagross is fairly rare. Definitely more common than like 252 defense Metagross though, so keep that in mind. With special attack, we need 188 with a plus Nature to one-shot a DD Salamence, which usually runs 116 HP EVs. And that, of course, that being with Ice Beam. That's pretty relevant because we don't need a lot of HP investment to survive an Earthquake from this Salamence. So we might be able to use Nidoqueen as a Salamence lure if we're going to run Ice Beam on it. Additionally, if we run almost max, not quite, with 232 with the plus Nature, we can 2-hit KO Skarmory with Fire Blast or Thunder after its leftovers recovery. Now, if Skarmory has Protect, which it commonly does, it can kind of warp this roll a little bit because it can get an extra turn of leftovers. But if you high roll both, or if you get a burn on one, or if you get a paralysis and that happens to net you a free turn, then it can still go pretty well for your Nidoqueen. with this investment, Ice Beam will also 2-hit KO an offensive Zapdos. And that is including its leftovers recovery. It's kind of interesting. It's almost the same role, Fire Blast on Skarmory as Ice Beam is on Zapdos. Yeah, I think that's all pretty good. This is looking a little more promising than I initially would have guessed. And then let's take a look at the speed tiers. So the number is the EVs that you'll put in. If it's got a plus, obviously that's with the plus nature. I think all of these are relevant speed tiers. Maybe not the 252, like the max speed one, but if you're running, say, like a choice band set and you're wanting the fastest Nidoqueen with the most physical attack investment, then that could be relevant to know that you're going to speed tie things like Vaporeon or Scizor. But Adamant Tar, that's a big one. Jolly Tar is also a big one. The neutral base 70s could matter if you want to be faster than most Magneton. If you also want to handle things like Breloom and Metagross more commonly, that could work. You also have some plus speed natures here. We can outspeed the neutral base 80s with 196 with the plus nature, so that would be things like Metacham or Venusaur that are running Adamant or Modest respectively. I think I said that right? I said Metacham first, then Venusaur. In any case, you're not running Modest Metacham, so don't do that. In any case, 232 with the plus nature will get you past the 85s, which would be Nidoking, which is kind of interesting, but more commonly Heracross is the big one. And being faster than Heracross with this type combination makes Nidoqueen one of the most threatening Heracross counters in the game. Heracross maybe could run like Earthquake maybe, but that is so uncommon and not generally worth it for the Heracross. With 248 in a plus nature, so all like literally 4 points away from max, will outspeed the max base 75s, which is Smeargle primarily, but also Claydol. Although Claydol is not going to run that fast generally. But the minimum investment that I would recommend is 8, because 8 speed EVs will get you faster than Jolly Marowak. And while Marowak is a somewhat niche Pokemon, and it's very commonly seen on Speed Pass teams, so it a lot of times when it hits the field, it has a speed boost thanks to its buddy Ninjask. Hate that guy, by the way. Then it might not matter to have that speed investment, but sometimes there will be a Marowak that was not able to get a speed pass to it, or if, say, like you have your Rock Blast Armaldo, which you should check out my Armaldo video, and you've eliminated the Ninjask before it could even pass the speed boost, then you still want to be faster than Jolly Marowak. This is the reason why the Agility Metagross sets, or maybe not Agility Metagross, but Choice Band Metagross runs 208 speed, is because it wants to be faster than Jolly Marowak in particular. So yeah, this is a lot to digest here. We can mix and match some of these. I mean, obviously, if we're going to do the bottom defensive investment and the bottom Spatak investment, then we're pretty limited on what speed tier we can hit. And I think it's usually important to think about speed first, because that's going to inform what you're able to do. For example, if we're not going to be faster than an Adamant Tyranitar, then, like, should we be investing to KO with Superpower, for example? If we're not even going to outspeed most Tyranitar, like, is it feasible that we're going to get our superpower off on Tyranitar. It's an important thing to note. Let's move on to what Smogon suggests. So this is the standard Smogon set for OU for Nidoqueen. It is basically max attack, max speed, Earthquake, Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb, and Superpower or Ice Beam. So you can tell that this was written a long time ago because they're talking about this being usable in standard play. Back before there was this concept of usage-based tiers, what we know as OU today was called standard. This is also kind of interesting knowledge here. BL, most of you probably know it as ban list, but it initially meant borderline, and Pokemon were placed into the borderline, it's not really a tier, but the borderline distinction, because they were almost good, borderline good in standard play. It is kind of reshaped as Pokemon has evolved, but I think it's kind of interesting to know what it was like prior to all the modern advancements that we've seen. So Superpower will KO Tyranitar, and I believe this even OHKO's 252 HP Tyranitar, especially with the Choice Band boost, and will do a lot of damage to the other fighting weaks, Snorlax, Blissey, and Regice. Remember, Regice used to be a part of Standard Play, or OU, back in earlier iterations of the generation. In fact, I think it was actually not too long ago that it was dropped to borderline, or BL, whatever you want to call it. And then there's this other part here, and I don't know who wrote this, but they're saying that Thunderbolt, Thunder, Fire Blast are options to take out Skarmory. You can shift 56 EVs from HP and Speed, which, I mean, you only have 4 HP EVs, so you don't have much room to take from there, but from Speed, to put into Special Attack in order to nab an OHKO on Skarmory. I just want to tell you, this is false. You will not get an OHKO on Skarmory unless you critical hit. Even I don't know what Skarmory sets were run back when this was written. I'm imagining it probably wasn't the standard Skarmory set that we know today, which is max HP, max special defense. But even like max HP Skarmory, you will not OHKO, and I believe even zero defense, like zero defensive investment at all. So like an offensive yellow Skarm, you will not KO with this EV investment. So this is demonstrably false. Whoever wrote this, please comment down below explaining yourself. But I digress. It is kind of interesting to note though that if you are against Yellow Skarm, which is the max physical attack and speed investment Skarmory, primarily used to lure in and KO Magneton, who's not expecting it. Even with a minus special attack nature and no Spatak investment, you will 2-hit KO using Thunder or Fire Blast, so it's good to know. And yeah, what do I think about this set? I mean, to me, it looks like it's trying to do Nidoking's job, but worse. Like, it's not as fast. It doesn't have as good an attack stat. And, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is a little bulkier, so it might survive 1 or 2 hits where Nidoking wouldn't. But, like, even then, like, we're not investing any in the HP, so to me, it doesn't seem like there's a thoughtful distinction here between doing this with Nidoqueen as opposed to doing it with Nidoking. I guess you could look at Superpower being the difference maker here, but like Nidoking has the stronger Earthquake and generally will handle Tyranitar pretty well, and you could run Brick Break, I guess, instead if you're really, really, really needing to get that kill on Tyranitar and doing massive damage to Snorlax, Blissey, and Regice. So I'm not an advocate for this set. I don't think it's great for OU. I think if you're gonna do something like this, you should probably just use Nidoking instead, or find a different choice bander who gets coverage like this. Which, albeit, Stab, Earthquake, and Sludge Bomb, you're not gonna find that on much else. So take that as you will. This is the set that I'm actually going to propose here. We have only 3 moves, which is kind of interesting, but it's actually the 4th move is the secret sauce here. I hope I've built this up with enough hype here, but let's explain all the other moves first. So we'll start with Fire Blast, which is our strongest move. A little bit inconsistent because of the accuracy, but it's important because we're using the special attack investment that allows us to 2-hit KO Skarm through its leftovers. So that's good. I guess I should note here that you have an 81% chance to OHKO Yellow Skarm if you match up into that. Granted, you will be slower than Yellow Skarm with this particular Nidoqueen, and you might end up taking an HP ground, but I mean, okay, so I'd rather take an HP ground on Nidoqueen than let a spike go up. I'll just say that. We will also 2-hit KO pretty much every Metagross. We will 2-hit KO Super Rachi, which is the max speed, max special attack, Calm Mind Jirachi set. There are some other Jirachi sets that we might be able to 2-hit KO, but a lot of the ones that are not running max speed tend to be running either max HP or some Spadef investment, which can complicate things. If it is max HP Jirachi, we will not generally 2-hit KO that with Fire Blast. And the same principles apply to Celebi, who has the same base stats as Jirachi. So offensive Celebi, we can get the 2-hit KO on, and that could matter, because if we catch offensive Celebi coming in on Nidoqueen, we get it with the Fire Blast. We have enough HP investment that we will live Psychic from it, so that's pretty good. It can be that's kind of the idea with Nidoqueen, is that it has so many options and it's so uncommon that we might be able to catch opponents off guard. They might make not very optimal plays around our Nidoqueen set. So yeah. Ice Beam will 2-hit KO offensive Zapdos after its leftovers. It makes it really, really easy if the Zapdos has, or if we have Sand up, then very obviously we will get the 2-hit KO. And we should KO all the standard Salamence sets. There is one Salamence set that runs around that sacrifices a lot of speed investment to have more HP and Spadef investment, so that it can take on Blissey in particular. And there are also some kind of defensive Salamence sets with Wish. The former set maybe matters a little bit, but that set tends to forego Earthquake in favor of Refresh. So I wouldn't be too scared of that, honestly, because even +1 HP flying is not going to threaten a KO on Nidoqueen. At least I don't believe so. Yeah, I'm not going to count that. I'm pretty confident that Nidoqueen lives that with 100 HP EVs. In any case, the Wish Salamence I'm also not scared of, because it's usually its strongest move is Flamethrower, so okay. Superpower here, you might have noticed that we have a really weird attack investment. We have a minus attack nature with 36 EVs. This is so that we can one-shot a 4 HP Tyranitar after 3 layers of spikes. How common is this to come up? Not very, but that's the minimum roll is 75%. So if we get up closer to the max roll, we could even KO a Tyranitar with less layers. If there's a minus defense Tyranitar running around, we maybe have a shot to OHKO that. And it just gives us a little bit more damage. If you don't want to run these defense or these offensive EVs for your particular Nidoqueen, then I would recommend putting them back into HP. While there's not a particular benchmark that I have in mind between 100 and 136, it is nice to have a little bit more HP so that we can handle things like a Snorlax Body Slam or the various other physical moves that Nidoqueen might be taking, like say for example, Fighting type taking less damage from Heracross or Metacham. You could also maybe go into special attack, but I haven't found any reason to go to max necessarily, and I'm a big proponent of finding a benchmark that matters when you have offensive stats. And this is the one that matters the most to me, which I don't think 252 with the plus nature gets anything else that I would really care about, you know. And yeah, we are outspeeding an Adamant Tyranitar. I believe we're actually outspeeding it by 2 to speed creep all the things that are also trying to outspeed Adamant Tyranitar. So you could scale back for EVs in speed if you would like, and then reallocate them into somewhere else, maybe HP. But yeah, this is the Nidoqueen set that I will be running, and the 4th move slot, as I've deliberated on so much here, is Beat Up. Beat Up is to lure and kill Blissey. We'll go on to the note on Beat Up. This should look kind of familiar if you've seen my Dugtrio video, but if you haven't, I'll briefly explain that Beat Up is a move that is really heavily dependent on your Pokemon's base attack stats and the target's base defense stat. Blissey, having the lowest base defense of all the common Pokemon that you will see in OU, is the #1 target to hit with this. You maybe could hit Dugtrio, but pretty much every other Pokemon has a defense stat that is a little too high for Beat Up to do any significant damage. The teammates of the Beat Up should have decent attack stats, even if they're not going to be physical attackers. So, for example, Celebi is commonly a special attacker, but it doesn't matter for this case because EV and nature investment are not calculated into the damage. It's literally just the base attack stat. And finally, you may be familiar with Beat Up on Charizard and Houndoom. They're special attackers that otherwise can't hit Blissey, but they do have Beat Up to threaten a 2-hit KO on it, which is quite nice. So yeah, now let's get into the team here. And this is kind of a TSS structure. We have the lead Tyranitar and Skarmory to get the sand and the spikes. Then we have we don't have a lot of Pokemon that spread Toxic. I think Skarmory is the only one that I opted to go for Toxic on. But in any case, it's kind of a TSS. You might have seen a similar type of team with Metagross in the Nidoqueen slot. I think that bulky Metagross, like especially the Impish one with Toxic, could work really well with this structure. So, I mean, if you're not into the fishy, underutilized Pokemon, then you can use Metagross instead. But Nidoqueen is kind of nice because it gives us more of a special attacking slant. It gives us a little bit of a better, a little bit of a better option into Skarmory. Although we do have the modest Zapdos, which should be plenty fine, honestly. Yeah, Tyranitar is going to make up for the reduced damage from Blissey's contribution to Beat Up. It's kind of funny. We'll see it in some of these replays, but you can tell, obviously, when the Blissey is attacking because it does so much less damage than everybody else. It also will set up the sand early, which is important for this team because we want sand rolls. especially for Nidoqueen. It can help out a lot. For modest Zapdos, we cover the bulky waters that Nidoqueen will kind of struggle with. So things like your Milotics and your Suicunes in particular. Claydol is our primary rock resist, and it gives us spin support, but Nidoqueen can also counter or check Tyranitar and Aerodactyl depending on the situation. If Aerodactyl's locked into Rock Slide, then Nidoqueen can come in and take not too much from it and threaten a pretty strong Ice Beam. And the same concept kind of goes for Tyranitar, in that if it's not a Jolly Tyranitar, we can outspeed it, and depending on the chip that it has taken, we can kill it with Superpower. And I want to note here that this team took me a few hours to test, and I have tons of replays. I'm only going to show, I think, 5 of them, but I've got possibly up to 10. So I might be using slightly different sets than what you might see in the description. Hello. That was strange. My microphone got unplugged, I guess. I feel like I've used the Gym Leader battle music before, but, you know, when it comes to Nidoqueen and you're thinking about where have I seen Nidoqueen before, I think of Giovanni from Pokemon Red, Blue, or FireRed, LeafGreen. So that's why I'm going with this. Also, you might notice that my avatar changed. I was laddering on a secret account, we'll say. I didn't register it, so you won't even be able to find it, even if I remember what it was. I think I just typed random things on the keyboard, and I changed my avatar to conceal myself, but I forgot to change it back. So we're going to be using the Hum Yum camper, as I like to call this avatar. Shoutouts to Hum Yum, by the way. Very good ADV player. But we're up against Suicune, Raikou, Entei, which I believe is Pokédex order. And they're going to lead with Suicune. I wonder if they're going to have Raikou and Entei. Obviously, I do not want to stay in and take a Hydro Pump with Tyranitar, so I will go to Zapdos. And Zapdos can fire off the Thunderbolt and get 50%. Takes Ice Beam and lives. This is why I love Zapdos. It can do a lot against a Suicune. So I get a Thunderbolt off on Snorlax, which is a good chip. I can go to Skarmory, who is probably the best defensive counter to Snorlax in the game. And I can just simply get a Spike Up. And yeah, I probably should have known that it almost looks like a blue offense structure with Suicune and Snorlax. You would think Magneton would be in the back, but I'm fine to get a Spike Up against Magneton. I did Protect there to get to full HP because even max special attack Magneton against my max Bedef Skarmory, which I'm running this time, doesn't have a guaranteed KO with Thunderbolt. So if I can Protect up to full, I might be able to get a second Spike off, or I could Roar. There's a lot of debate about what the best move if you find yourself in that situation is. I think personally I went for the second Spike, but I will go to Nidoqueen, and this is an example of some differences here. I have Focus Punch on this Nidoqueen rather than Superpower, but regardless, I can stay in and I can live an Earthquake, but it actually happens to be a Mixed Mince, and I live Dragon Claw even easier than Earthquake, so I can just Ice Beam and get the kill. If I had Thunder, maybe I could have clicked it, but lead Suicune, especially with Ice Beam on its set, is very commonly going to be the offensive Suicune that is running more speed than my Nidoqueen probably would be. So I do switch to Blissey. I switch into Claydol, passing it a Wish, but this is a banded Metagross. I decide that at this stage, I kind of have to sack the Claydol, and then maybe go Zapdos, get the Thunderbolt off, and then hope that my Nidoqueen is fast enough to take out the Metagross. A part of the reason why I'm an advocate for 2 points faster on Nidoqueen or 2 points faster than Adamant Tyranitar, is there are some choice banded Metagross that will try to outspeed Tyranitar. And if we can outspeed that, then we could be fine, and I'd have the opportunity to Fire Blast it. But I get very lucky and dodge a Meteor Mash, which puts Metagross down pretty low, and then Zapdos can come in and finish it off without sacking itself, which is really nice. Snorlax could come in, but instead it's Magneton, and I go for Thunderbolt, and I don't quite 2-hit KO the Magneton. This is the argument for Modest, by the way, is that you will 2-hit KO Magneton after the spike damage. I can come in with Nidoqueen, who walls Magneton. The only move that Magneton could have, possibly, to hit Nidoqueen hard is HP Ice, but that is a very uncommon set. So that was probably HP Fire, possibly HP Grass, but doesn't matter. I'll stay in with Nidoqueen because I have the ability Poison Point, and I might be able to poison the Heracross if it opts to kill me with Mega Horn. It doesn't work out for me, but I was going to have to sack something anyway, and I figured that Nidoqueen had done most of its job at this stage. I go to Blissey on a Snorlax Earthquake, and I get hit with a crit, which is not ideal. I have to soft-boiled. Metagross comes in and booms my Blissey. I don't know if I would have went for Boom in that situation if I was the opponent. I probably would have went for Meteor Mash. It's better into well, if you're choice banded Metagross, you probably just kill the Tyranitar anyway. But you might limit my ability to go to Tyranitar on the revenge kill. I might have to go to Zapdos, which might constrain the variables a little more for you. But in this case now, I can go to Tyranitar. Yeah, Suicune would be pretty dangerous for me, but because I'm bulky Tyranitar, I might live the Hydro Pump depending on what the Suicune's investment is. And if they go to Snorlax, then I have the opportunity to Dragon Dance up. Self-Destruct does not kill me. And as long as I hit my Rock Slide on Heracross, I should win this game. I mean, granted, I could just win this game anyway, right? If I do enough damage to keep it from being able to get a substitute up, then I could have Zapdos come in. But I kind of figured that if I go for Earthquake and I don't get the damage that I need, then if it gets behind a substitute, gets its Salac off, it might be able to just get 2 Mega Horns off and win the game. Maybe I could have calced that to see if Earthquake would have put Heracross low enough that it's not able to do that. But it's also possible that I could have put it into Salac range. It could have Mega Horned my Heracross, lived the sand, and then had a very favorable chance to kill the Zapdos. So forget that. I'd rather have the 90% chance to hit Rock Slide than mess with all that. So let's get to the next game here. I believe that here I'm actually going to reorder my tabs. All right, there we go. This next game here, Lead Salamence versus Lead Tyranitar. There's a whole BKC video on this. If you want to know what you should do in this situation, you should look at that. And I did what I should have done. My opponent didn't necessarily. Mixed Salamence will not kill Tyranitar. Granted, Tyranitar with the minus attack will not kill Salamence back. But if I had Ice Beam, I could have won the Salamence there. But it's not worth it to risk that, because if that was choice banded Salamence, I would have been in trouble. In any case, we skip by a couple turns here, and then we see a Machamp. Nidoqueen is very good at taking on Machamp. The Cross Chop and the Cross Chop, Rock Slide, if it has like maybe HP Ghost, that would be its best move to hit. If it has HP Bug, we also resist that though. But scouting for like a crazy option like Earthquake, I go to Skarmory. It also would cover potential switch-ins to Nidoqueen, like for example Dugtrio. I managed to get in versus a Suicune, probably a defensive Suicune. And based on that damage with the critical hit, unfortunate, it probably is defensive Suicune. But I get my spike up and I was able to roar the Suicune out, which is fine by me. I can go to Claydol on what I'm presuming to be a defensive Jirachi. And I can just fire off an Earthquake. Now Suicune is in and it's threatening to set up on me. And I don't want to let it do that, especially because my Blissey's at only 60%. And I'm not going to win a Calm Mind war. In fact, I don't have Calm Mind on Blissey, so I opt to blow up there. Machamp is in versus Nidoqueen. Can't really touch it, so I can go to Skarmory. And I get a Toxic off on Claydol. If this is not Refresh Claydol, then like I'm very favored to just win by spiking up. I do manage to get a spike off against the Machamp. I will go for Protect, which is possibly foolish. I could have maybe let the Machamp get a bulk up there, but I figure that with Nidoqueen, I'm not too afraid of that. I can go to Nidoqueen now on a Cross Chop, and I take 45, so it's actually a little bit more than I was expecting. It's probably a choice banded Machamp based on context. And Claydol comes in and gets crit by Ice Beam, which, yes, that matters because I would not have killed the Claydol otherwise, or at least in one whole shot. But I do outspeed Claydol, unless this is a really, really strange max speed Claydol situation. But I would have killed with the next Ice Beam. My opponent maybe could have switched to Jirachi, but that just opens up the opportunity for Jirachi to get frozen. And yeah, it probably worked out about as well as it should have in any case. I know that this is mixed ments based on what happened earlier, so I can just stay in, take the Dragon Claw and kill. And my opponent will get poisoned. Doesn't really matter because it just feints to Ice Beam, and then Brotato, I like Brotato, will forfeit there. Is that a JoJo's reference, by the way? Just noticed that. In any case, pretty interesting. It's also kind of cool to note that because of the weird dynamics between physical and special in Gen 3, that there are a lot of contact moves that are special, like Dragon Claw, for example. So you can still activate Poison Point on some special attackers. Kind of neat that that's how it works. In any case, yeah, we'll do this game next. Don't quite recall what happens, but we have Lead Tyranitar versus Lead Tyranitar. Both of us are going to switch. My opponent switches to Swampert. I switch to Skarmory, which is generally favored for Skarmory because I can get my spike up. Fortress comes in. I will go to Nidoqueen. My opponent does not expect me to have Fire Blast, and I just get the KO on Fortress, which is really, really nice. That affords me the ability to get more layers of spikes up without fear of a spin. Sometimes Fortress teams have a second spinner, but I don't believe that this one will. I get a crit on Celebi, which forces it to recover if it has it. It also maybe could have went for Leech Seed if it didn't, but I felt like Giga Drain was so uncommon there, so Tyranitar is pretty safe to come in. And I click Hidden Power Bug, and my opponent goes to Gengar, which I feel like is a very scary play for my opponent. Because if I happen to be Crunch Tyranitar and I was coming into Crunch the Celebi, then my opponent would have lost the entire Gengar, and basically the game would have been over. But I guess my opponent makes the calculated risk that I'm not a special Tyranitar. Misses 2 Will-O-Wisps in a row, as I opt to get my spikes up with Skarmory. Finally gets a Will-O-Wisp, but I get my third layer up. I was kind of in this situation here where I was like, well, the spinner's down. I think I want to get 3 layers of spikes up. And if Gengar gets my Skarmory for it, then that's fine. I roar and reveal the last to be Aerodactyl. So that's important information because I know now that I need to save my Claydol HP. I go for Toxic in case my opponent goes for a move with Aerodactyl that doesn't kill my Skarm. But my opponent astutely goes back to Gengar. I'm going to soft-boiled up. I would assume that if this Gengar had Taunt, that it would have clicked it on my Skarmory. So I'm fine to go for a soft-boiled with Blissey. I will go back to Skarmory in case my opponent wants to boom. But my opponent did not boom, just opt to take the kill on Skarmory. And I can go to Zapdos, threaten a Thunder Wave, and then HP Grass. And this is a modest Zapdos, which will always kill Swampert from that range. My opponent will go to Tyranitar. I'll Baton Pass to see what my opponent does if they want to do a crazy double. But I can get Claydol in, who can go for an Earthquake to threaten to 2-hit KO the Tyranitar. And my Tyranitar should live an Earthquake back, so that was kind of the idea there. My opponent didn't want to take that, so they opt to switch to Gengar. Blissey's in now against Celebi. I could go for another Ice Beam, but I'm going to kind of thud into this. This is looking like a utility Celebi to me. So I will opt to instead soft-boil up my Blissey and then pass a Wish. Could be to anything, really. I'll go to Claydol here. I'm seeded, and there's a Spike Up on my side, so I'm very incentivized to click Rapid Spin here, which is obviously why I'm going to click Psychic, because I feel like it's so obvious that I'm going to click Rapid Spin. I have to catch the Gengar. I get the Spadef drop on Gengar, which is really nice, because now Blissey is threatening with its Ice Beam. So my opponent will switch to Tyranitar. I will go for the Ice Beam anyway. If I get the freeze on Tyranitar, fantastic. And if not, it's still Chip. I can go to Claydol here, who should live a +1 HP bug. So my opponent opts to go for Rock Slide to try to get the flinch, and I will KO with Earthquake. I mean, my opponent was kind of desperate. Like, there's not much that they could have done. So I respect the play, but generally it's not going to work out. Only 27% of the time does Tyranitar get the flinch that it needs there. And in any case, I still have some plays I could make. I could go to Nidoqueen, sack it, and then go to Tyranitar, and then my opponent will have to make the Rock Slide play again unless they have Brick Break. So, yeah, that's good. Gengar comes in. I could have just went for a Psychic to kill the Gengar, but I didn't want to get Will-O-Wisp, and I really didn't want to give up Claydol to a potential Destiny Bond. So instead I will go to Blissey, which is a little bit safer. At this point, if the Gengar explodes on Blissey, and even if it kills it, that's fine. I really don't care. I think I can win with the rest of my Pokemon. Celebi will go for Leech Seed and miss. I will just pass the Wish to Claydol. Which is really nice because it makes it better against an Aerodactyl Double Edge. I will opt to stay in to spin, actually. My opponent goes for Giga Drain and gets a critical hit, which is a little bit unfortunate. But Claydol still lives, thanks to the Wish, so I'll take that. I kind of have to go Blissey now, which undoes all my progress against the Celebi, which is fine. But Gengar's going to get a lot of HP back here as well. 26, that's a lot. Could set up another substitute if it wanted. At this stage, I find it very difficult for me to get my Claydol back in with good enough health to do anything, so I'll just opt to sack it here. And then I can go to Zapdos. I believe I go for Thunder Wave here. That's right. I get the Thunder Wave off on Celebi, and now I can go for Baton Pass. My opponent opts to stay in, so I can go to Nidoqueen, who's generally hurt the least from Celebi. I'll go for Fire Blast, which puts my opponent into pretty good range. And I would have lived that Psychic, but I get crit. That's unfortunate. But now I can Dragon Dance with the Tyranitar. Giga Drain's not doing enough to me. I think I will opt to, in fact, go for a second Dragon Dance, so I will be faster than the Aerodactyl. My opponent goes for Leech Seed, which is fine, but you're not going to kill me in 3 turns, so with the Leech Seed, so I'm totally fine here. My opponent has to get a Rock Slide miss from me, but I do not miss. And yeah, I will win the game here. Blissey was 100% guaranteed to beat this Gengar. The only thing it can do to kill my Blissey off is explode, and if it explodes, it loses. So, yep, pretty well played by me, I must say. Unfortunately, the Nidoqueen got crit with the Psychic. It would have went really crazy there if it didn't, but killing the whole fortress is really nice. This is the argument for using Fire Blast. Tyranitar versus Tyranitar. Tail as old as time. Both switching to Skarmory. Tail as old as time. And I will opt to switch to Zapdos here. I don't want to get taunted if it's a taunt Skarm. And I have a Claydol of my own, so I don't necessarily mind letting one layer go up. Claydol comes in. I'll go for an HP Grass just to get a little bit of chip on the Claydol, but my opponent will go to Blissey. It actually looks very similar to my team. I wonder if they're using Nidoqueen as well. That's a joke. I know nobody's using Nidoqueen on the ladder. I'll get my Spike up. That's pretty good. Can protect here because I feel like my opponent is not going to be able to make significant progress with this Blissey. Now, granted, Thunderbolt Ice Beam is usually a Calm Mind Blissey, so maybe I should have been a little bit wary of the Calm Mind. But I will go to Nidoqueen and I will Superpower into the Blissey. Now, here's the thing with Nidoqueen and Beat Up, which we haven't shown Beat Up yet. A lot of Blissey are going to be scared of Nidoqueen clicking a Choice Banded physical move into it. So Blissey is almost always going to switch out against the Nidoqueen. So the reason why I go for Superpower rather than Beat Up is I want my opponent to see that I have Superpower and note how weak it is so that they think that they can go to Blissey and 1v1 my Nidoqueen. When the Blissey is comfortable, when I've conditioned my opponent to do that, then I can go for Beat Up, which will 2-hit KO Blissey as long as I have most of my Pokemon alive and unstatused. So I go for a Superpower into Claydol. I'll go for Ice Beam, predicting my opponent to Rapid Spin. It's kind of dangerous because if my opponent went for Earthquake, I would have probably been iced right there. But I figured that Rapid Spin was pretty much the move that my opponent would go for because I have a whole Skarmory to switch into. And this works out really well for me because I get the Ice Beam off, which is not quite 2-hit KOing, but because Rapid Spin's a contact move, there's a 1/3 chance to get poisoned, and it does, which puts it in range to die to the next Ice Beam. So I can just go for that. I hit a Moltres for 30%, which is pretty nice. We'll take that for sure. I can go to Blissey now, who takes a Will-O-Wisp pretty much just as well as any other move. Blissey comes in. I can set up a Wish. I'm threatening to go to Skarmory here, which I do. My opponent also wishes, though. Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Wish is not a super duper common set, but I guess my opponent is opting for that, so interesting. Explains why they didn't go for Calm Mind. I can just go for Protects and Spikes against Claydol if that wants to stay in. Because it's poisoned, it's going to lose in the long run. So I don't mind that. Of course, I'm going to have to switch out against the Moltres, which my opponent catches with a double 2 Tyranitar. Goes for Focus Punch as I go to Claydol. And I take that pretty well. That damage is potentially banded, so I'll need to keep an eye out for that. I would imagine that like the BKC Tar, which is the 4 attacks Tyranitar with Focus Punch and HP Bug, would probably not be doing that much. In any case, I can go for a spike here. I'll take the Rock Slide on the chin. A little bit unfortunate that I get flinched there, but I can just protect. And now I can threaten to get another layer of spikes up if I want to, but instead I go for Toxic, because that would have been really good into the Choice Banded Tyranitar. But Claydol will come in, blank the Toxic, but I can just kind of go for the same strategy. And Claydol reveals to have hidden power, probably Fire. Kind of interesting, but not ultimately not that consequential. I can go hard to Tyranitar here. If I get Will-O-Wisp, I guess I get Will-O-Wisp, but I take a Flamethrower pretty well. I will go to Blissey, predicting a switch to Skarmory, or really just to not get burned. But in any case, I probably could have afforded to get burned there, because if I kill the Moltres, then we're in a really good spot. I get roared out into Claydol, who I will Rapid Spin with. My opponent will go for Toxic. Fair enough. I guess I get a taste of my own medicine. Zapdos is pretty threatening here. Blissey can come in. I will Thunderbolt it. Do an okay amount. Enough to force this thing to go for a Soft Boiled. But now I'm in with Nidoqueen. And I felt like I could reveal the beat up there, because I felt like my opponent would just set up a Wish on my superpower, and I don't do a lot. Here's a note here. I hit 5 times with beat up. I have all 6 Pokemon alive, but Claydol is toxic, and any Pokemon that has a status will not contribute to the beat up. And then also this, if you can look at the rolls here, this can sometimes be an indicator to your opponent what Pokemon you have. Doesn't really matter since all of my Pokemon are revealed at this stage, but this 0% damage on the Moltres here, that's Blissey attacking, so it legitimately does like 1 HP of damage, so it's kind of funny. I'll get roared out of my Blissey into Tyranitar, which is probably the best case scenario for me. I'll go for Rock Slide, and I get some chip on the Swampert. We're both trying to find a foothold here. Basically, the first Pokemon that goes down is probably going to lose the game. I get a nice switch to Zapdos on Moltres. I can go for Thunderbolt onto the Blissey. I get a Paralysis. Might matter. My opponent is fully paralyzed, which allows me to get a Roar off into Claydol. I'll go for HP Grass here. My opponent decides to risk the Claydol there. I don't know if they were trying to get a spin off or if they were going to boom on my Zapdos, but Modest Zapdos just gets there on the Claydol, which is really nice. Now my opponent has no way to remove hazards, and I'm going to chip out the Tyranitar and the Swampert. Blissey can keep soft boiling itself up, but I am totally fine. I will go for beat up now on the Blissey, which puts it really low. I'll take the Ice Beam on the chin, as long as I don't get frozen. And at this stage, I could go for beat up again, or I could go for Superpower, which will kill the Blissey at that range. Superpower covers Tyranitar coming in. It also does a little bit of chip to Skarmory, which is nice. I go for Fire Blast, which I think I have not yet revealed to that point. And my opponent goes for Toxic, trying to catch something switching in, probably Zapdos. And now I'm in the driver's seat. Nidoqueen is stacking my advantage here, and my opponent with 5 Pokemon left will opt to forfeit. Yeah, it would have been a tough situation there. I could have went to Tyranitar. If I get burned, maybe sack it against Swampert. If I go to Zapdos as well, that's really scary because HP Grass will kill Swampert. Nothing wants to switch into Thunderbolt, not even Blissey, because of the layers of spikes up. And I would have, it would have been a pretty linear game plan there for Zapdos to win the game, and all facilitated by Nidoqueen. Yeah, not too many Pokemon that can handle Skarmory and Blissey at the same time. So it's really good to know for Nidoqueen here. And then my last game here, this is against Revenant in the Flesh. I believe that this is a person who is in Zet's Discord, so I don't know how you feel about being featured on the channel here, but shout outs to you, Revenant in the Flesh. Tyranitar versus Skarmory. So against lead Skarmory, I tend to like to Dragon Dance with Tyranitar, because I can Rock Slide. If I get a flinch, then Skarmory's in a really bad spot if it, trying to roar me out. But I can reveal the Swampert here, who looks like a defensive Swampert with Hydro Pump, based on that damage. I can get my Spike back, and then I will go to Zapdos. I get taunted on my Zapdos, but I don't really mind that because I'm just going to click Thunderbolt. Blissey is in. Blissey taking not very much. It's kind of a bit of a problem for me. I will go for Thunder Wave, potentially catching a switch. It's also not so bad to Thunder Wave the Blissey because I can go to Tyranitar and I'm threatening to Paraflinch this away. But I don't anticipate that my opponent is going to allow me to do that, so I will go to Zapdos on the Swampert. We'll see if my opponent lets me HP Grass the Swampert. Does not allow me to do that. And then I will go again for the Thunder Wave on Blissey. Potentially, this is not a great move. If I'm getting, if I get Ice Beam, that could be bad. But it can force a little bit of progress, perhaps, as I go to Tyranitar here. In comes the Swampert, who I will Earthquake. Not super great damage, but maybe we'll force the Swampert to go for Protects instead of attacking. I'll go to Zapdos here. I'm fine as long as I don't get crit with the Ice Beam or Frozen. I go to Nidoqueen there, trying to catch the Blissey switching in, but my opponent instead opts to protect the Swampert, which is pretty nice. I can float the Wish as my opponent reveals to protect again, and then go back to Zapdos. Again, crit or freeze would have been pretty bad for me there, but I can threaten the Swampert out. So Blissey's in, hardwalling the Zapdos is a very common situation. But instead of T-waving the Blissey this time, I will go to Nidoqueen. Against the Skarmory, I will go for Superpower. It's a little bit of chip. And then I can go for a Fire Blast. I miss it. My opponent might have Drill Peck, and that could be a little bit problematic for my Nidoqueen. But instead, my opponent will opt to get the layers of spikes up as I miss one of my Fire Blasts, which is not fantastic. But I can go for another Fire Blast into this Blissey. I get a Burn, which is a little bit consequential. And as many gurus of of offensive Swampert with Focus Punch have said, the optimal HP to click Focus Punch on Blissey is 60%. Because this is generally where Blissey is either going to... Blissey's generally going to soft boil around this window. So taking that into account, I will go for Beat Up now, which has been unrevealed up to this point. I get a critical hit, probably with Zapdos's Beat Up, maybe with Skarmory's, I'm not sure. And that secures the kill for me, which is great. That makes up for the Blissey, contributing literally 1%. But I would have threatened the Blissey. I would have threatened to kill the Blissey anyway, which is nice. I would have had to switch out, and then this Starmie would have to spin the spike away for Blissey to ever come back into the game. But that was very good how that worked out for me. I will go for a Toxic on this Focus Punching Tyranitar, probably a BKC Tar. And then I will opt to go to Claydol to take the last Focus Punch, because I can save this Skarm as a sack. Trying Charizard comes in and I opt to spin because there should be no one move that Charizard can click to 2-hit KO. So I'm fine with that. I'll go to Blissey because I'm at high HP. I don't mind if they get a substitute and Focus Punch because it should be doing in the ballpark of 50 to 60%, and I should live the oncoming Fire Blast. My opponent decides that they're going to Focus Punch, but they have not heeded the wisdom of the offensive Swampert players. The Blissey, when it's this low, generally is more willing to sack itself off than take a Focus Punch. So I astutely go for a Seismic Toss and stop the Charizard from being able to kill me. It was obviously threatening. I was threatening to just straight up kill it, and it's not even in Blaze range yet. So it's going to have to switch. And I can kind of chip heal my Skarmory back, possibly get it back into the game. Which is really nice. You can always click Protect against a Pokemon like Starmie who doesn't have a setup move. You'll always get some HP back. And at this stage, I will opt to sack the Nidoqueen. It kind of did the job that it needed to do. It could have maybe been a little bit helpful against Skarmory or Tyranitar, but they're both chipped enough to this point that I feel like Zapdos is going to clean both of them up. It also would have covered a switch if my opponent switched to... say, I don't know, Tyranitar or Skarm, predicting me to switch to Blissey, I would have been fine. But sacking the Nidoqueen is perfect because now I can get Blissey in, and barring a Hydro Pump crit, I can Soft Boil back up. I couldn't switch the Blissey in because 2 Hydro Pumps would kill. So, yeah. Against the BKC Tar, I will go to Claydol. And if you're faster, that's fine. I click Boom. Boom was great there because it would have done significant damage to Tyranitar. It was dead, probably dead to Toxic, and if not, it would certainly die to the Spike. But it also covered a Skarmory switch, which I managed to get, and this is the best case scenario for me. I go to Zapdos against the Zard, and my Zapdos is not even 299 speed, so that's a little bit of a slower Zard, which is very fortunate for me because I can just Thunderbolt. My opponent is kind of forced to sack something there, and they opt to sack Charizard, which is probably fair enough. Starmie's in. I can go to Blissey. I don't care about giving up this the spin because this is presumably an offensive Starmie, doesn't have Recover, so I can just get a 2-hit KO with Seismic Toss. Assuming that my opponent would switch to Swampert, I go for a Wish, but they actually switch to Tyranitar, which is fine because I can go for a Seismic Toss and beat this down as well. If they flinch me with, say, Rock Slide, I could have been in a bad spot. I would have had to sack the Skarmory, and I end up sacking the Skarmory here anyway because I don't want to get flinched. And the Tyranitar is low enough now that T-Bolt is going to kill it. HP Grass will also kill it. And yeah, there's kind of nothing my opponent can do at this stage. They could go to Starmie, but Blissey is healthy enough. They could then switch to Swampert. I would come into Tyranitar, sack that. Zapdos comes in. HP Grass gets 2 kills. So that's kind of checkmate there. So no shame in forfeiting in that position. You are a very good player, Revenant in the flesh. I will be stealing your team and laddering with it, probably. Although I probably run a little more speed on Charizard. In any case, though, that was Nidoqueen, and it was a little bit more successful than I would have expected. I did make a joke about throwing Elo, and do I think that I could get to 1600 with Nidoqueen? Maybe, probably not, though. I'm not a consistent enough player to get to 1600 with good teams, let alone with a Nidoqueen team. Not to say that this team is like really, really bad. It's got its merit, which I hope I've shown off. But yeah, it's not always the most consistent Pokemon, and definitely niche. But yeah, if you want more of a Nidoqueen fix, and you happen to watch my video before you watch Zet's video on Nidoqueen, please go check out Zet's. He's really awesome, and maybe you'll even see a little surprise there if you're a big fan of Tetrafolium watching the Zet's Nidoqueen video. Not going to spoil necessarily what that is, but please go check it out if you have not already. Yeah, this has been Tetrafolium, and we'll see you for the next video, probably coming out this weekend.